Okay, so always take your time settling in, and just starting with the seated position that we're sort of looking to move towards, always in the awareness that we're not necessarily going to be here the whole time. It might get uncomfortable or whatever, but I'm sitting right forwards on my chair, slightly tilted forwards, so I'm just aware of my feet and my legs supporting a portion, about a third of my weight. So just a little bit of pressure in the soles of my feet that I can just relax with, and feel the support coming from feet, and then the remaining 2/3, obviously the chair, but you're sitting on the chair, so lower back, hips and buttocks are all sort of part of the whole support network. So if we start off like this, there's two things really. One is we become familiar with this posture. The other is it stops us just sort of dashing into the session. We want to avoid that kind of hurrying mode that we usually get into. Got to get on, got to do this, got all this to do, blah 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 blah. It's just something that we fall into very, very easily, I think, most of us. And so it's good to just sort of take the time, consider how you're sitting, and it becomes habitual. And so eventually you're able to do this without too much kind of conscious effort. You're standing in a queue, and you find yourself just going through this process of settling, becoming more aware of your body, key points in your body or your whole body. At this point, not being too particular about exactly what you're focusing on, because this is the start of things. And then rubbing your hands together, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. And your arm. The other side. Upper part of the chest. Your belly. And your legs. Now, sit back. So from that starting point, that kind of stillness, we then begin to build up a picture, if you like, an awareness of what's going on in our posture. And in Tai Chi terms, one of the most important things to consider is this ability to yield to the pull of gravity, to find a way in which gravity can pass through your body without you resisting it. Because when we start to strain against something like the pull of gravity, we introduce a tension, a tightness to the body. So this is the process that finishes with this idea of rooting down, that our weight, our center of gravity drops, and in the chair, it's dropping through the chair, so slightly back. And it's a good position just to become familiar with how our body responds to that in areas like our belly and our chest, so affecting our breathing, in our shoulders, and just generally in parts of the body that may feel a bit stiff. They're actually given a chance to release a little bit, because we take away that factor of straining against gravity, and we take away a major factor that causes stress and tension. Not the only one by any means, but certainly a major one. So resting in this position for a few moments. So that quality of stillness enables us to observe more, to recognize more what's going on, both in our body and in the environment around us. If you're dashing around all the time, you can miss so much. And the same is true as if our thoughts are pulling us all over the place. We phase out. You find yourself reading a book but thinking about something else. You turn the page and then realize you haven't got a clue what's being said because you missed the last paragraph or something like that, or in a conversation with somebody and suddenly he says, "Oh, sorry, could you say that again? I was miles away," sort of thing. Now we come back up to the upright stance. Now you may be okay forwards in the chair. You may want to sit a bit further back to help to support your back. That's fine. Again, maintaining that process of just observation as I described it. This is where Tai Chi is best seen really as a contemplative art, a meditational art, a moving meditation. Again, get that feeling of dropping down. It's a little bit different, a little bit more difficult in an upright stance. You may find yourself stiff in your back or in your neck, but feeling the support again, feet, legs, hips, buttocks, but also feeling that now the front of your body is supported by your back feeling longer and broader than the front of your body. So maybe able to just find again that releasing feeling in your belly and your chest and so on. Or maybe just imagining that was happening, having the intent that happens, and just feeling sometimes when we think in terms of an almost abstract thing, this is how I know I can feel, we find ourselves quite naturally shuffling around a little bit, altering our position just a little bit. So that's also quite a sort of intuitive thing. And then just beginning to turn your head. So either way, we become familiar with how we manage to retain this landscape within which our body is able to transmit the pull of gravity downwards, and also to allow other movements, a freedom of movement. So turning our head and just experiencing that smoothness of movement rather than thinking that we have to somehow resist that movement. This quality of yielding is one of the kind of very important qualities that we want to develop and maintain in our Tai Chi practice. Hands in front of your shoulders, circle your elbows back, and just allow the movement to encourage a sense of movement and releasing your joints, of course, but also to, in a way, sort of take you on a guided tour of your body, building up this picture of the inner landscape. And that's both the benefit of body and mind. Our mind becomes more deeply calm within our body, going forwards now. And the greater awareness means that we can work much more subtly with posture and movement. So where the quality of movement within the body. Hands down by your sides, so they're resting on a pillar either side of your body, rotating your arms. When you do this, feel the movement not just in your arms, shoulders, but in your chest and your upper back. So again, we start to feel not just the quality of the movement in the part of the body that is clearly being moved, but also elsewhere in the body, and this sense of a connection gradually building up. And then winding around. then back the other way. And rest. Easing forwards and so now we start to consider how we're coming upright. And again, this yielding to the pull of gravity pulls us down, and our legs start to feel fuller, denser. And when we go back, our hips, lower back feel slightly compressed. And our body's response to that compression, a perfectly natural one, is to at a certain point push us back. So we start to really feel this movement downwards through our body. And then really in parallel with that, that response of our body, that resilience moving upwards. So we have an awareness of a basic sort of pattern of movement that is always present in our body. Gravity is always working on us. And because we haven't collapsed to the ground or anything like that, there's always something holding us up. And we want those two forces, those two energies, they have a kind of equilibrium about them, a balance about them. Turning a little. So we take that movement, that vertical movement, and we turn in the center of our body, and we start to direct it in certain ways. And this involves a physical process, turning in the center, but also an intent. We want to move here. Everything that we do in Tai Chi should be considered something done by the body mind, not just by either our body or by our mind. Turn in the other direction. And then circling around. So your pelvis now rolling around on the chair, center of the body being the sort of hub where the movement focus and expand out from. And then back the other way. Then come back to your central position. Pull one foot up, step out, put your heel down, lower your toes. Measure your step so that you've got a good contact with the ground, knees still soft. The other side. And the rest of the movements are whole body movements, using those elements, both body and mind, that we were developing. And now your weight back in your hips, 70% of your weight, 2/3 of your weight back in your hips, 1/3 forwards. Hands facing forwards, tilt forward so more of your weight goes into your feet, at the same time making this rotation in the arms that we did earlier. Chest open as you go back, back open as you go forwards. So this movement develops a sense of rhythm. Some parts of your body extending, opening, expanding. Others, the opposite. Contracting, closing. And between them, that creates this very gentle flow through our body. So we're just being very gently massaged within our body by the movement. Then just leaving your hands facing back. It's like a fisherman cast the net. Letting your arms swing. They follow the body. And then as you come to rest in your feet, your arm will swing forwards just a little bit. Then you go back, your arm and hand following. And as you settle into your hips, they swing back just a little bit. And again, note what's happening in your back, your chest as you do this. Because it looks from the outside quite possibly, so I'm just standing here swinging my arms, but really we want to keep this sense of our whole body engaged in one movement, whole body and mind engaged in the movement. Your attention quite naturally wanders. We scan our environment, we're aware of what's going on outside. So it's not a hard concentration. One of the things we can do is note key points where we bring our attention back. And good points are, when your weight is forwards here, you're just resting in your feet. You go back and you're resting in your hips. Just beginning to recognize that, particularly at the points of change from one movement to another, one part of one movement to another, there's this opportunity to find again that kind of still quality, such a characteristic of the art. But from that point forwards, this time changing the movement, rolling the ball in towards your chest. That very deep sense of calmness that builds up while we're doing these movements really comes from that awareness of what's going on, and an awareness that there's that potential for just settling at certain points. We may lose that settled feeling in between, or even for a minute or two. We gradually learn to come back to it. This time, pigeon spreads its wings, drawing your arms apart. In this way, although we're repeating movements that in some cases we've done many times before, we always start off with the same movements, and yet that focusing of our attention can bring a real sense of aliveness and energy to the familiar. It's like walking through down a particular path that you walked down loads of times, and just suddenly noticing something's changed, something different. And the truth is we're changing all the time, of course. It's going back and then forwards. Change again to pushing wave. This time your hands coming in front of your hips. Elbows going out a little bit still, and then pushing forwards. One more time. Hands down, front of your hips, this time with a loose fist. Punch with both hands. This one, don't let your elbows go behind your shoulders, just pull back and let the movement be absorbed in this rotation in arm and then release. So imagine your arms like a spring and somebody pushes and presses the spring and then it releases as you go forward to push in. Open your hands, turn them out, winding out, and back in. What was like doing the breaststroke? So nice and open across your chest, your arms push out. And this time when they're in front of your belly, turn them palm down, turn. Ease forwards, drawing your fingers around in a circle, just polishing the tape. One more time. Come back to the center. Turn your hands palm up in front of your belly. Then rather than alternating between feet and hips, both gently press down together. The body expands and then contracts. Your arms follow that movement. So they're lifting the ball up, ball's being pushed up in your hips, and then letting your weight and your shoulders drop to press the ball down. So as you expand, notice how the feet and your hips sort of deepen their sense of sinking downwards. Just to give you that little bit of an extra boost and upward energy. And it also helps to sort of keep that sense of root and stability that comes out of that. This time change into the wild goose again. The hands out to your sides. The image of the bird in flight is a one that brings helpful qualities in to the movement, like smoothness, a flow of movement, strength of movement, and make good use of it. And then parting the clouds. One more time after this one. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. The intention here, one side of your body expands, the other stays contracted. Expand inside, pushes your arm up, plucking a fruit off the tree. Notice whether you're speeding up, and that's often something that makes itself known when we find our other hand starting to move before we've finished one side. Remind yourself not to rush and to just enjoy that ability to focus on one movement, one thing, rather than continually multitasking. Now both hands together, pressing up as though you're going to just gently press your palms of your hands against the low ceiling. Way back down and then lifting, this time pressing out. The rhythm in this particular movement, expanding and contracting, serves to bring both your arms and your attention back to that center part of your body again. Do one more round. Step one foot onto its heel, knee still a little bit bent. Turn towards that foot and bring your hands, position palm up, scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And then changing, hands loosely twisted again, sit back, push forwards, and this time with a kind of upward intent, grasping the tiger's ears. Try that on the other side. So your left foot out, resting on the heel, knee a little bit curved. Very carefully as you go forwards. And watch out for your back. Don't overdo the movement. And then grasping the tiger's ears. One more time. Now, come back to this original position. And I think we did this on Thursday, but we'll go over in some detail. So hold the ball with your right hand just about level with your shoulders, left hand more in front of your belly. Press them together, or rather push the top hand down, the bottom hand will rise up a little bit. Let them push out, and here you can see the diagonal line between the hand, like I'm stretching out and the rest of the hand. Contract. And then same thing on the other side. Your weight remains in that 2/3 third position. This is called stretching between heaven and earth. We get this nice sort of diagonal line going up through our body. Almost as though your shoulder on one side is being pulled away from your hip on the other. An exercise where there are many variations, not least amongst which are that I'm doing this at an angle between my hands rather than upright. Some people prefer the upright. We'll do one more of these. As I said, there are lots of variations on these. And one is to bring your hands in as though you're holding the ball. Then turn the palms of your hands outwards. Push out, so you're pushing the ball out from within. And then just let your hands slide around in a circle. When they get back into position above and below each other, turn them in, squeeze together a little bit, and then push out. And circle back the other way. Okay, and then just shake it. So just sitting for a moment, reminding yourself of the qualities of this posture, how it feels in your back, your belly, your chest in particular. These are qualities that we're going to want to take with us into the standing movements. And once again, there's a technical side that we will want to consider, but also as you get more experience, what I refer to as this sort of intuitive aspect, this intentful aspect. This is how you intend to stand, and our bodies, of course, are very good at following intention. But just let your arms rest for a moment, feel the weight of your arms sinking down into your legs, looking for that breakdown between the weight in feet and the hips, so you feel supported. And again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, your arm. On the other side. Upper part of the chest. Belly. And your legs. Hands resting and just pushing your heels up. Your knees go up and down. Getting the muscles of your legs working a little bit before we stand. And then circling around. Back the other way. Okay, and then stand if you wish to. Remember, you can always sit whenever you want to, and you can also, if you feel it's appropriate, use something like the chair or the wall just to give you a little bit of support. I'm going to move my chair out of the way so I don't bump into it. Basic stance should reflect those qualities that we found in the sitting stance. Obviously, structurally, it's going to be a bit different. So start with your feet below your hips, not too close together, so you've got plenty of space there, and just try and reproduce some of those qualities. The best way to think of this, have your weight a little bit forwards, and then let your hips drop back. So bringing your weight forwards, this is exaggerated, you tend to tilt forwards a little bit. When your hips drop back, it brings you to the upright position. So 70% of your weight in the front half of your feet. And then just thinking about the center part of your body, turn in there, letting your arms just swing from the shoulders. Now, if you're using something to support yourself while you do this, do be careful, because obviously you don't want to bump into it. If I was using the wall, for instance, I would just have one hand on the wall to support myself, and I'll be doing it with one arm. Then after a few moments, I'll turn around and I'll do it with the other arm. Your arms, or the arm that is moving, feeling quite heavy. So feeling the pulling them around rather than trying to do something with your arms, they're just hanging very loose, shoulders being pulled down a little bit, and letting the center part of your body do the work for you. So some of those things that were slightly less obvious, I think, in the chair-based exercises become a little bit clearer, like exactly what our legs are doing, how the center of the body functions, and so on and so forth. Others, of course, can be more difficult because you are trying to support yourself and your legs. And if you feel a bit unstable, the posture's out, or your legs are tired, that becomes more difficult. And you also have the eternal habit that we try and constantly pull ourselves up. So yielding to the pull of gravity. And then raising your arms. Feeling the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders, rather than straining in your shoulders to lift your arms. And then just let your hands drop down, shake it. So our intention is to reproduce that quality of being able to yield to the pull of gravity, and of course to feel the push up. But we may not be able to fulfill that intention. Sometimes the body will go, oh, that's what you want to do, that's what I'll do. But other times we may need to consider a more technical side. You know, if I'm standing, for instance, like this, exaggerated again, but we quite often do tilt back slightly. And I think, oh, I just got to release tension in my body, then I'm going to fall over because it's the tension that's stopping me from falling over. In fact, you would have to work really hard to overcome your body's natural tendency not to want to fall. And so we begin to develop an understanding on both this, what I described as an intuitive level, but also a very conscious technical level. We can become quite fussy about, oh, this is where the foot should be, this is where the shoulders should be, and so on and so forth. Both aspects of that are important. Now, standing with the feet hip width apart, doing the exercises, rooting down, wild goose, and parting the clouds as a little sequence. So we're in here, and you push up, you expand, and contract, settle back down into your feet. And as you do, bring your hands out, the wild goose. And settling down, let your hands drop down and parting the clouds. So we recognize these little moments of settling. Ideally, of course, we would be settled all the time. But in practical terms, nobody ever is. But we learn to take these moments, to find these moments, and you know, the awareness of your movement, the awareness of your body are good ways of doing that. And of course, there's a benefit for mind and body in that process. Last time. Now, and 1 foot forwards, keep the width of your step. And like when we were in the chair, we measured the step we were taking long enough so that, that's better, yeah, long enough so that you can comfortably move your weight from 1 foot to another, getting about 60% of your weight in the front leg when you go forwards, then when you go back, about 70 in the back leg. And again, 4 stages, you move and settle, you move and settle. And just getting used to punctuating activity with these literally moments of settling. We can emphasize them certainly in the practice sometimes, but really what we're looking for is a quality that in the Tai Chi writings is described as the stillness within the movement. But as I said earlier, realistically, we do lose that. So getting it back is the important thing. Then as you settle into your back foot, just raise your toes. You'll find a bit more of the weight goes in. Have your front foot turned out now, go forwards. Push your back knee forwards. So the raising of your toes is just a simple flexing of your ankle, which actually encourages your front hip to drop down. And the back foot, the knee comes forwards. And again, that encourages your hips to drop down. So both of them, these movements that are the prelude to taking a step, actually also encourage a further dropping of our center of gravity, our root. And the more you can drop your center of gravity, the more you get the physical stability. So again, we see where those moments that are described as punctuation moments. And with that, the increased awareness of what's happening in the body, oh, my hips are dropping down, and you can begin to work with that. So it has a direct impact on our movement and our stability. And then we can just step in. On the other side, again, first of all, fixed step, toes and heels staying down. Raising toes and heel. Step in. Good, and then step through, bring your foot forwards and out, backwards and out, whichever direction you're going in. Stepping through, taking your time, just trying to feel each step, the contact with the floor as your foot goes down, the change as your weight goes in, weight of your leg as you take the step. Change direction when you need to. Right, so now back to 1 foot forwards, right foot forwards, and the standard version of fisherman castanets, starting with your weight in your back leg. Going through, once again, pulling your arms through until you arrive in the front foot where they swing past your hips. Same idea going back. Nice soft feeling in your arms, wrists and fingers. The weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders. And this sort of hint of movement in your chest and your upper back. So it's during those moments of just arriving properly in one leg or the other that our arms swing a little bit further. So the movement doesn't stop, but there is this more settled quality of that. And move with your weight into your back foot, and you're sort of just facing forwards, turn a little bit towards the front foot. So your arms get redirected to the movement, wind blows the willows. Good. Okay. And shake out. So change sides. Left foot forwards, keep the width of your step. Starting in your back foot, push forwards into fisherman casting. So when you go into your back foot, turn in. But expanding, contracting. Expanding, contracting. This time, turn your front foot out, come forwards, and as you turn, bring the back foot in, and then forwards, step, or backwards, if it depends on your room. Now you can either bring the foot in and just leave it down and take an ordinary step, or you could raise the foot up a little bit. What you feel most comfortable with. This is dragonfly skims the water. And as your foot comes up, if it does, this is where you want to again notice the pull of gravity on your hips, pulling your center of gravity down. And it's there that we get the stability of the movement. So again, your awareness helping with your stability. And then change direction. All too often we're unaware of that pull of gravity and the effect it's having on us. With the awareness that comes with Tai Chi, we can start to work with it rather than against it. We can get gravity to pull our center of gravity down rather than to pull our body over. That's quite a difficult thing to do. It's counterintuitive, but nevertheless, it's very effective. And then bring your feet back to parallel. Good. So go back to your chair. So when we're building that awareness of the body, that meditational element, it's not something that is separate from the body. And you know, what really and truly, ideally, we wouldn't think of mind and body, but rather one term, body mind. Again, that's quite unusual. So now just coming back to basic seated position, third of your weight, up to a third of your weight in your feet. If you're further back in the chair, that might not be so obvious. Supported through your legs, hips, buttocks and lower back, and your upper back supporting the front of your body. So rib cage dropping a little bit. Breathing coming a little bit smoother, hopefully. Hands down to your sides. And again, this idea that we can come back to this, because you push your arms out, embrace tiger, return to mountain. But they reach a point where you may even find yourself stiffening up a little bit. But there's a circular, cyclical nature to the movement. We expand, but then once again, allowing gravity to work through our body, following the movement in our mind. So again, that awareness of gravity breeds an even deeper sense of stillness and calmness. One more time. And open your eyes. Thank you very much, everybody.